So, what is segmentation? Segmentation is breaking down your target market, or what you've addressed to be your target market, and breaking it down into smaller sections that are more manageable and sections that you're able to more specifically advertise to in an attempt to draw in more customers. Um, there are tons of different ways that you can do this, but there are four main categories, which are geographic, demographic, psychographic, and product related. So for geographic, fairly straightforward based off of geography. One way, would be to break up the United States, which is a big area. But one way you're able to do that would be through, north, south, east, west. So I lived in Texas for a year, and one thing that I learned when I was down there was that the South is very patriotic. Everything is, America, Texas. So that's one way that marketers can use to directly advertise to them. That's something that's going to be different than the North, South, East, and West. Each culture is going to be different. And that's something that marketers can use to their advantage. So for demographic, there are many different ways, age, gender, family, household. So for age, for example, you can break it down into, the generations. So you have your younger generation, your Gen Z, and your millennials. Those two generations are more technologically inclined, so they're able to use social media, different internet programs and stuff like that, and they're constantly on them. So that's one way that marketers can use that to directly advertise to them, opposed to the older generation, Gen X and baby boomers. You're gonna have to totally advertise to them in a different way. You might be advertising the same product, but it's going to be in a completely different way because they don't use social media like we, the younger generation, do. Another example in the demographic segmentation would be through gender. So for gender, it's kind of changing over the years. I know in class we discussed skincare products for men. Dove came up with a Super Bowl ad, and before that ad, skincare for men wasn't really talked about. It wasn't really a market. And then after that, it boomed. Now it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So that's one way that the gender stereotypes are kind of changing over the years. Same thing with the use of candles as another example. Growing up, candles were mainly for women, at least where I was from. And now I see more and more men having candles and lighting candles and stuff like that, which I think is cool. They smell good. So I like candles. And then, another way would be the use of colors in advertising. Generally, blue is for male, pink is for female, and it still is, but not so much. It's kind of, lowered a little bit. So now the use of colors is kind of changing. It's not always, blue and pink. It could be, a mixture of the two for one gender. So for psychographic segmentation, this is basically breaking down, a group of people to be in the same group based off of, their beliefs, their lifestyle, their interests, and hobbies, and stuff like that. So that's going to be something that they're all going to be very interested in one thing, and you can directly advertise through that as a way to pique their interest and try and bring those guys in. And then there's product-related segmentation, which would be, some companies offer, different promotions and offers to increase brand loyalty. That's a way that marketers can advertise. So then there's the criteria for effective segmentation. Basically, the groups that you're breaking them into must have a measurable purchasing power, and must be large enough to offer a good amount of profit. So basically, if they don't if the size isn't there, or the people aren't able to afford your product, you might want to avoid that because it might not be worth your time. You might not be able to bring in as much profit as other groups that you segmented. Those groups must also be able to match your marketing capabilities. If, for example, people don't have, it would be like the baby boomers and Gen X. If your marketing strategy is always through social media, then those baby boomers and Gen X's are not really going to be able to see it as much. So that might be a group that you might want to avoid. Not necessarily avoid, but not focus your energy on. And you must be able to effectively promote to that segment. If you're not able to, again, you might as well avoid it because it might just be a waste of time or a waste of money and not be able to bring in the amount that you're putting in. So basically what happens next after you find, enough segments, you're going to want to choose, which ones are the best ones to advertise to. And those are usually based off of the criteria for effective segmentation. The ones that are going to be able to offer you the most profit. Usually the biggest ones, not always. Certain things like that. And then once you, find those specific ones that you're going to advertise to, you're going to want to create very super specific ads to them that are, specifically tailored to them, that are going to pique their interest and want to buy your product. That's what the whole point of segmentation is, to break them down and then directly advertise to those people specifically. It's a way to pique their interest and get them to hopefully buy more products. And then the concept of positioning. Positioning is basically placing a product in an area that you think more people are going to buy it. Like, I think that positioning is influenced by the segmentation, because you do all that research in hopes to figure out which areas, which groups of people are more likely to buy your product. And then you put in your product and see how well it does. It's either going to thrive or it's going to crash. And so that's why I think positioning is influenced by the segmentation. If you were to not do the segmentation and then do your positioning, put in your product out there in an area you think, you don't have any idea of certain areas that are more likely to buy. So yeah, overall I think segmentation is obviously it's very important, but yeah.